Yeah, so I like what Red Bull has done. We have to remember that after Newey left, because he was at odds with Vache. I think Vache has a different philosophy of engineering to Newey. I don't know what the nuances were, but when he left, there was a fall, and we noticed that there was a fall after they got rid of that what do you call it, that little device. There's no proof, but they probably had a brake differentiation thing. So that was the start of the decline of Red Bull. And I think they've done very good because they figured out last year that they were bad, but rather than try to hastily speed up and make adjustments like what Ferrari is doing, they've taken a gradual approach to improving their car. The first thing they did, I noticed that they didn't have a total change. The RB21 is not much revolutionarily different from the RB20. It's just that it's gradually tweaking it and gradually improving it rather than having a total concept change. Because we know that McLaren, they changed their concept a little bit by moving their the rack steering forward. We know Ferrari disastrously did their they changed their front suspension. But what Red Bull did was they worked more in improving stability without any major changes. And the first major thing they did was to work on internal stability with the floor and also with the way that flowing air flows within internally, not externally. They didn't make changes to the external shape of the car, but they
Yeah.
made some internal changes for that. Then so at the beginning of the year, Ferrari, Red Bull was still looked a bit slow. They looked slower than a lot of teams. I think Verstappen was coming fifth in one of his races in Australia, but I noticed that they were stable. Then they said, okay, we're stable, but we don't have grip. But it seems like they did a few things with their back suspension and also by adding the floor, they've gotten so much better on curbs. You saw how good they were on curbs at Imola, Afolabi.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
that floor with changes to the rear suspension and then with also internal flow of air, then inlets and outlets has given them a combination in which they now have stability. They still need to work on grip a little bit, but they have stability. They have more rear end stability. They have better cooling overall in the car, even though it's not at the level of Ferrari. But they still seem to do well on high speed tracks. Also, they never had that problem because the car is fronty. But it seems like the car has got a lot more stable. And the latest thing that we saw was very low tire drag in Imola, which I think is due to the overall aero efficiency of the car. And you can't say it's one thing; it's the combination of everything together that they've done so far. What do you think of Falabi?
Yes, I quite agree with you. And it's been an evolution, but they've done it systematically, and
Mm-hmm.
it hasn't been radical. It has been done in phases. Like you rightly mentioned, the initial upgrades were basically improving the cooling efficiency and the internal airflow with a new front wing, wider nose, and updated radiator. And because of the flow of air, the cooling efficiency was also improved. And then in Miami, they brought a new floor, you know, and that's helped Max Verstappen's aerodynamic stability. And it was also shown in Imola
It also helped for the curves too,
for the
curves
curves, the way he was
and
riding the
downforce.
curves and the bumpy section, it showed that the new floor really helped him. But for me, the game changer was really in Imola when they replaced the shark mouth design with an entirely new geometry, similar to that of Ferrari and Mclaren. This also enhanced the airflow and the diffuser performance, which really helped Verstappen to, dominate. He really dominated this Grand Prix, and I think these are, in a nutshell, a few things that they've done.
There's,
They were not
there's
so
one thing we both
radical like
forgot also.
Ferrari.
There's one
Yeah,
thing we both forgot, which was the duct at the back. The
yeah, the doctor at the back as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they've
yeah.
done their own in phases, and
Hmm.
it's not been radical like Ferrari. And I think that's why they've gotten better results. And you
Yeah,
can,
and that duct at the back helps for cooling. And I think we don't really know what this trick that McLaren is doing, but whatever it is doing, McLaren is stagnant, which means they're as fast as they were at the beginning of the season. They haven't slowed down, but it looks like they've slowed down because Red Bull has gotten faster.
and
That's the main thing.
they're also working on brake drum solutions to improve
Yeah,
their
yeah.
tire management
Yeah,
and thermal efficiency.
there's some rumors that McLaren may be using electrothermal cooling, which from the sensors that's very brilliant because electricity can either charge something or suck out the energy from something.
Yeah.
So it can charge it and heat it up, or it can cool it down. But it's too late for any team to try to do that because you'd have to figure out how to integrate it. But what they've done is they found aerodynamic solutions to cooling, as you said. What are your thoughts in general, cooling? I think you noticed how Red Bull has gotten a lot faster. A lot of people said it maybe that they found out the trick secret or that McLaren may have stopped using their whatever their trick is because it's illegal. But I think the answer is just that slow development by Red Bull. And we have to remember Red Bull is a rich company. They have drinks and everything. So they have engineers working on this 24/7. And I think it's paying off. What do you think, Kunle? Yeah.
But I don't. I just saw the results of P1,
Yeah.
and P1 reveals less than anything to anybody. I'm still curious to see what's going on there.
But we're talking
Vis the
about Red
other
Bull.
teams that Red Bull is competing with, along with, and I've noticed Alpine and Williams and Aston Martin are beginning to also find themselves where they shouldn't really be, which is in the top half of the
Yeah.
leaderboard. So
Yeah.
I'm quite curious. I don't know yet whether Red Bull's plans have worked for them or not, but I know that whether they have or they haven't, they're still up there or thereabouts. So it's not gone wrong.
Yeah.
And
To me, it
that
looks like
should
it's gone just
spell well for McLaren.
through anecdotal evidence. It looks like it's gotten better because Verstappen has won two races this year. Leclerc has won three, and Norris has won one. Verstappen has won three of the seven qualifiers. This time last year, there were times when Verstappen was coming fifth or sixth and everything. So to me, anecdotally, it looks like the car has gotten faster. And the rest of the Ferrari did okay. Leclerc did well, but we know he's good in Monaco. But it seems like Ferrari and Mercedes are kind of like nowhere. They're not really challenging Verstappen. It seems like now this year is just McLaren versus Red Bull. What do you think, Kule? Yeah,
Red Bull.
yeah. What do you? So what do you? Oh
It's
yeah,
more McLaren versus Verstappen.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's McLaren versus Verstappen. It's not really
but the reason I
McLaren
say it's
versus
McLaren
Red
versus
Bull
Red Bull is because
because the
it's
second car is so far behind,
yeah, but I think the
and
second car, the
Verstappen
reason
is
that
all over the two cars.
but I think the reason it is because the Red Bull car doesn't have a driver. There's only two people who can drive it. So it's actually the Red Bull car. It's just that Tsunoda is not able to unlock the speed. So a car is as fast as whoever can unlock the speed from it. If you put Leclerc into that second Red Bull will win the constructors. What do you think, Afolabi?
Yes, I
Okay,
agree
I was
with
going to
you.
say before I wanted to say that I
Okay.
actually thought Tsunoda would have been better if he had started from the start. We'd have seen more from that second car
Oh
because
yeah,
he's
was
taking
he?
over from Lawson late. I think that's the
Yeah.
main problem that Tsunoda's
Okay, let me change my phrasing. The MCL 39 and the RB 21 are the fastest cars this year. I think the MCL 39 is the fastest, but the RB 21 is getting faster, especially in the hands of Verstappen. But what I was saying before I followed me is that if you put Leclerc in the RB 21, he'll be coming second in the championship, maybe even first. What do you think, Afalabi? Yeah.
Of course, those two cars are by country mile the
Yeah.
fastest this time around.
Well, I
And
made a mistake, not second, but he'd be up there challenging with McLaren
at
and
least
Verstappen. Go ahead.
consistently making podiums,
Yeah,
consistently
yeah.
making podiums. And if you
Or
look
top
at the
four.
Red Bull car, I was really impressed with the way, like I said, they have done their thing systematically. Each of those upgrades have been timed to match the geometry of the circuit. Look at the
Yeah,
shaft mount design that they replaced with the front geometry, similar to Ferrari and McLaren. It really helped them in Imola with curbs and the bumpy sections. So it appears that they are doing things specifically, they are track specific upgrades, which has really helped the overall aerodynamic efficiency of the car. And now they're focusing on thermal management to the tires, which will be the
yeah,
overall game changer as they move into the European circuit. So I think
yeah,
they've planned their evolution in a very, very strategic way. And it's helped improve Max Verstappen's performance. Now he's in
yeah.
sync with his engineers. There's understanding of what he requires, and the car is being tailored to his driving ability, so he's getting better results as
I
compared to
even think
the McLaren.
I think it's a good thing that Nui left. Let me tell you why. Nui is a designer, so he looks at the overall concept and he also solves minor problems. But now Red Bull is now what I call a nuts and bolts engineering team. Setup. Nui is not the setup person. He's a designer. So I think this is better because when you rely on only one person, that person becomes like God. And they can be like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
he may even be holding information from the other engineers on the team. This is my little information. I am the whole team. But now they're working with the mechanics, the setup. They have several engineers. So I think this was actually a good move for Red Bull to
Yeah.
have Nui going because You can't rely on Newey. Newey, when he turns 70 or 80, what's going to happen? Pierre Vacher is like 40 something years old. So I think at some point it's like you have to give up that drug. Newey is like a drug, but you got to get rid of that because what will happen is that you become dependent on him, and then when he leaves, your team falls apart. It shows that the team wasn't well integrated with all of his parts. What I mean by all of his parts, everybody in there playing a role. Kind of like our show, we're all dependent on each other. No one person is more important than the other. What do you think, Kunle? Yeah.
You just described what happened to Manchester United with Alex Ferguson leaving.
Yeah. They need to have a system. They need to have a culture. For example, Arsenal had a better transition with bringing in this guy because Arsenal does have a system, and all he has to do is manage it. Same thing with Liverpool. Liverpool has a system.
I think so. I think so. But
Red Bull is now going to develop a system. For example, we don't even know the name of the top designers in Mclaren. It doesn't matter because it's a systemic team. So I think it was good for this guy to leave. Nui, what are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Yes, I quite agree with you. And a good number of those guys that worked with Newey are still in the Red Bull garage. So, and they are vastly experienced. And like you said, because you don't have one guy just dishing out the instructions, there's more synergy and cohesion in the team. And the most important thing is that all of them are working along with the drivers to exact the best performance from the car, which were not. Last season, we saw Verstappen complaining a lot about so many things, but this time it seems settled. You know, he seems to be working with his team with a lot of understanding, and there seems to be some seamless synergy between them. So it shows that Adrian Newey leaving was actually a positive for Red Bull. I think it was time he left, really.
Because we have to, and here's what I foresee with that's going to go on. Verstappen's not going anywhere because he has a team of people he knows and understands. I think he's not going to jump to Aston Martin and Mercedes unless it's not next year anyway, not until after next year. If next year with the changes things are really bad, then he may be tempted to go to Mercedes or Aston Martin. But for now, he's going to stay put. And it just goes to show you how fickle F1 is. 2 weeks ago, they were saying Adrian Newey is going to get fired. That was a lie. That was clickbait. Even all this stuff about McLaren's tires is all clickbait. We have to look at the trends of what's going on. F1 will always be an engineering sport. And whatever advantage, there is still an advantage that McLaren has, but whatever it is, even if it's tricks never work ultimately, because you saw what happened with Red Bull when they had the brake differentiation. There's no way around it. And no matter what tricks you do, you can't win in F1 unless you have a stable platform. You have to have a stable floor. Suspension and floor are the most important things in F1. Then aero design. Everything else is secondary. Yeah. Okay. So last thoughts, Kunle, before we
because they need to maintain the competitiveness and the entertainment of it. If there was one team, I think that the Formula One, the organizers have got to see that they don't want the competition to become like the year. Do you remember when Braun was dominating and it was just a procession?
Double diffuser.
So they don't want you don't want that sort of nonsense happening. You want it to remain competitive and entertaining. So yes, I don't think that they would allow such dominance again. They would let the other teams in on it if it's safe for everybody to have it, or they would ban it if it's
and also, F1 is a circus.
Maintain the drama.
F1 is a circus insofar as there's no secrets. No team has any secrets. There's so much espionage, and it's one company. So we know that each team knows what the other teams is doing, which is a good thing because it keeps it competitive. But the difference is that Red Bull
have a sporting chance. Motorsport.
That's why Williams may come top 3 next year. That's good for the sport, and also the name Williams, we remember it fondly. So that's a good thing. So I feel like this has been a great show. We don't win. All right, take us out of here, Falabi.
Yeah, I think Red Bull and the rest of the chasing pack need to remain competitive so that when FI's directive on front wing is actually in effect, they would have covered a lot of ground, because I have a feeling that thing would affect McLaren. And from Mustafa, Kunle Williams, and myself, we'll be back with F1 some other time.
Yeah, probably tomorrow after qualify or Sunday after.
Okay, great show, guys.
Thanks. So you're good. But me and Afolabi will do a football show tonight. Okay.